Welcome back to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host, Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about Little House on the Prairie, Part 2. Continuing our exploration of how sewing machine technology showed up in the course of these well-known American children's books by Laura Ingalls Wilder, including branching topics into dry goods stores, calico fabric, and Ma's Delane dress. I said in the last episode that I had some research to do for show notes that I would share with you here, and this is now the time for that info dump. Essentially, I was on a quest to learn about how much Laura's daughter Rose warped the books to fit a specific worldview. TR mentions a website called pioneergirl.com, where an encyclopedia of information about what is in the books is provided. Pioneergirl.com is an exhaustive set of essays about everything that ever happened in the books. Definitely a labor of fandom love. I checked here for information about Rose and found a very interesting quote from her in 1942 in a short essay about her column in the Pittsburgh Courier, which was a black newspaper that was one of the leading black papers in the U.S. But that was it. Then I went to littlehouseontheprairie.com, an official book series website which is full of essays about the history behind the books and much more. Searching for Rose there got me a bit more information about her column and life story, and on the initiation of the Little House books as a somewhat contentious project between mother and daughter. There is apparently a collection of books from the South Dakota Historical Society Press titled Pioneer Girl, The Path into Fiction, or some other subtitle, there's several volumes, that cover all of this in more detail. I might try to get one of those from the library and report back to you all eventually. They also have other essays about the contemporary and modern takes on the books, historical facts and maps and essays about various relevant topics. Definitely worth wandering around there for a bit. I noticed on our social media post for the last episode, someone asked what was actually controversial about the books, and this is a good website to start with to answer that question. In short, the books relate contemporary attitudes towards Indigenous and Black people using violence, slurs, and racist caricatures, and depict these actions as positive or perhaps neutral. Since almost none of that is relevant to the parts of the story that include sewing machines, it is fair to say that we are not being controversial by covering the books in this light. And as a tangent, I know I speak for Mom and myself when I say that I think calling these books controversial is a bit much. They have contemporary flavor, but that should be seen as an invitation to engage with the messiness that is American myth-making history, rather than as a shameful thing to purge from our collective consciousness. Uncritically holding these books as an authentic telling of U.S. history is a mistake, but one that is easy to avoid. Okay, end tangent. Back to explaining my bibliography. Next, I visited pioneergirlproject.org, which is just about the annotated autobiography that Wilder wrote, using all possible materials. I read one article on that website that talked about how Laura and her daughter Rose both had strong writing careers that intersected, but that they didn't have any particular conflict around issues that could be construed as plagiarism. I read other quotes that suggested some serious misunderstandings were amicably resolved, so perhaps it is impossible to know the truth. But I am confident in saying that they didn't have a huge feud or anything like that. But let's get away from dedicated websites and look at more general sources. From NPR and PBS, I learned that the multiple references to non-white people in racist ways have been divisive for many years, to the point that a literary award was renamed to not honor Wilder. From Wikipedia, I learned that her daughter Rose was one of the more influential members of the American libertarian movement, along with Ayn Rand and Isabel Patterson. She was a prolific writer on a lot of topics, from being the first biographer of Herbert Hoover to also being a reporter for the American Red Cross in the 1920s. That article goes on to frame her advocacy as a combination of, quote, laissez-faire and anti-racism by rejecting the concepts of race and class entirely, and was vehemently against the New Deal and communism as she saw in the Soviet Union, end quote. There's a lot of interesting details here, but it is Wikipedia, so I won't linger too long here. She is held up as a founding icon of libertarianism for sure. Do with that information what you will. That was all very interesting to learn about while listening to pioneer music streaming into my ears. But does it have anything to do with sewing machines? No, not really. Nor do the claims I found on Reddit that Pa Ingalls was a shiftless and violent alcoholic, or that the geographic timeline doesn't line up with the narrative, or even the very real fact that they were part of the illegal squatting edge of white colonization into Osage country. I could go down this rabbit hole forever. But I think perhaps I've taken up enough time on a sewing history podcast with this digression. Let's get back into Laura's memories of her first encounter with a sewing machine. Do we know what machine it was, or can we make a guess of what machine it was specifically?
So there's this really excellent website for people who like to deep dive. I'm talking like you and your Wheel of Time people who know every detail. There is at least one website with a person who has indexed every single thing in the Little House on the Prairie books. It's called pioneergirl.com.
Bless them.
It's a beautiful website. There is no trashy ads. There's no pop-ups. There's no advertising whatsoever. It's a beautiful website. If you're interested in that, we'll put a link in the thing, but it's just pioneergirl.com. And she says the first mention of the sewing machine is in the Little House books, is in Little Town on the Prairie when Pa mentions one there's in Clancy's store. So that's what we just read. We don't know, there's no place, even in the manuscripts, where the make or model or anything about that machine is mentioned. However, the second time a sewing machine is mentioned in the Little House series of books is in the book These Happy Golden Years, which is the last book in the series. There's a couple places where a sewing machine is mentioned. So Happy Golden Years, I'm trying to think. I think this is 1885 we're in now. So this is 4 years after Laura worked in Clancy's store and encountered her first sewing machine.
So now she's 18.
She's getting ready to get married, basically, to Almanzo Wilder.
Right, because that's what you do when you're 18 at that time.
Yeah. So what does she got to do? She's got to make a whole lot of new clothes and curtains and sheets. She's got to sew for her new upcoming house, right?
Right.
So last Friday in April, Mr. Wilkins paid Laura $22, her first month's salary. She's a school teacher now. And the next day she went with Ma to town to buy materials. They bought bleached muslin for underwear, chemises and drawers, petticoats and nightgowns. Enough for 2 of each. They bought stronger bleached muslin for 2 pairs of sheets and 2 pairs of pillowcases. For Laura's summer dress, they bought 10 yards of delicate pink lawn with small flowers and pale green leaves. Then they went to Mrs. Bell's to find a hat to go with the dress. And then they describe a whole lot of hats because this book is, I mean, if you want to know about 1880s fashion, this is like right there. They came to the wagon waiting for them in front of Fuller's hardware store because the whole family went to town. Pa drove the wagon, right? He's off doing stuff. These guys are buying fabric, So then they all meet back at the wagon to ride back out to the home. Something bulky stood in the wagon box covered with a horse blanket. Laura wondered what it was, but had no time to look, for Pa untied the horses quickly and they all started home. "What have you got in the bag, Charles?" Ma asked. "I can't show you now, Caroline. Wait until we get home." At home, he stopped the wagon close to the house door. "Now, girls, take your own packages in, but leave mine alone until I get back from putting up the horses. And don't you peek under that blanket." He unhitched the horses and hurried them away. "Now, whatever can that be?" Ma said to Laura. They waited. As soon as possible, Pa came back. He lifted away the blanket, and there stood a shining new sewing machine.
Wow.
"Oh, Charles!" Ma gasped. "Oh, yes, Caroline, it is yours," Pa said proudly. "There'll be a lot of extra sewing with Mary coming home and Laura going away, and I thought you might need some help." But how could you, Ma asked, touching the shiny black iron of the machine's legs. I had to sell a cow anyway, Caroline. There wouldn't be room in the stable next winter unless I did. Now, if you help me unload this thing, we'll take the cover off and see how it looks. A long time ago, Laura remembered a tone in Ma's voice when she spoke of a sewing machine, and it made Laura think maybe she wanted one. Pa had remembered. He took the end gate out of the wagon, and he and Ma and Laura lifted the sewing machine carefully down and carried it into the sitting.
Would take all three.
It's heavy, right?
Yeah.
While sisters Carrie and Grace hovered around excitedly. Then Pa lifted the box cover of the machine. So this is not a drop head. This has a coffin top. It has a box on the top. Pa lifted the box cover of the machine, and they stood in silent admiration. It's so beautiful, Ma said at last. And what a help it will be. I can hardly wait to use it. But this was late on Saturday afternoon. The sewing machine must stand still over Sunday. Okay, these guys observe the Sabbath. They don't do any work on Sunday at all. They put on their nice clothes and they read the Bible if they don't actually go to town to go to church. So here she just got this thing Saturday night and she can't use it till Monday. On Monday, Ma studied the instruction book and learned to run the machine. And by the next Saturday, she and Laura began to work on the lawn dress. Lawn is a very lightweight cotton fabric. The lawn was so crisp and fresh, the colors so dainty that Laura was afraid to cut it lest she make a mistake. But Ma had made so many dresses that she did not hesitate. She took Laura's measurements, then with her dressmaker chart, made a pattern for the waist and fearlessly cut the lawn. And then it talks about all the different details on it, how they sewed it. Oh, it is so pretty, Ma, Laura said when she saw it. All those tucks are so even and stitched so beautifully. I declare, said Ma, I don't know how we ever got along without a sewing machine. It does the work so easily. Tucking is no trouble at all in such beautiful stitching. The best of seamstresses could not possibly equal it by hand. Laura was silent, looking at her new machine-stitched dress. Wow.
The way, and this is a treadle. There's no electric light. There's no little gizmo for making pleats and tucks and adding ribbons all in one fell swoop. There's no buttonhole attachment. There's not even a marked throat plate. The patterns are entirely custom, and they're just like, wow, this is the most incredible upgrade in all of human history. What a trip.
For women, it really, really was. I mean, this just takes it right back to one family about the impact of a sewing machine. So now let's go back to Pioneer Girl's website where she analyzes this scene. In these happy golden years, Pa sells a cow and surprises Ma with a sewing machine of her own. What kind of sewing machine did Ma have? Where did it come from? What happened to it? A brand name is not mentioned in the published book, but in the existing manuscript it is said to be a Singer sewing machine. The fate of Ma's sewing machine is unknown, but according to Little House on the Prairie scholar William Anderson, the children of Henry Hines told him that when they were young and played in the barn behind the Ingalls' house on 3rd Street in DeSmet, there was a broken treadle sewing machine there. Perhaps it had been Ma's? If Caroline Ingalls owned a Singer sewing machine in 1885, there's no way of knowing which model it was. New shuttle models had been introduced in 1879 and 1885, with the later models popular for decades. There's no way of really knowing if Ma's machine was a Singer, because that may have been proposed in the fiction merely because it was a familiar brand name, and they don't know if it was a new or a used machine. In DeSmet, new sewing machines were sold at the General Merchandise Store by George Schofield. According to the advertisements in the DeSmet newspapers, the average new sewing machine cost about $23. Wow. So Laura sewed shirts, and for a whole summer, that whole sewing shirts thing she went on, I think she earned $16 or something. I'll read on there, but
Sounds right.
she worked a whole summer and still couldn't have afforded to buy a sewing machine.
Wow.
Pa sold a cow to buy a sewing machine. And this is 1885, so sewing machines have been around for 30 years now. They're not entirely uncommon. Now it's like ordinary folks can get them. It's like probably when I was a kid, it would be like buying a TV set. A TV set was a really expensive thing.
Right, not everyone had one, but plenty of people did.
We had a little tiny black and white. We never did have a color TV. Not until the 70s, my mom bought a little tiny one. But, it was a big deal. But Pa saw Mary's coming home from college, Laura's getting married. There's a lot of sewing, just household sewing that needs to be done. And he's, all right. Pa didn't make a whole lot of great financial decisions, but this one he did good.
Well, I think it's because he remembered how much her eyes lit up when she saw that 4 years ago, and he was like,
That was good foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So at the very bottom of this article here is a whole list of every time sewing of any kind is mentioned in any of the books. We're talking Laura working on a hand quilt or whatever. So if you're really into Little House on the Prairie or frontier type sewing, this pioneergirl.com is a great little website. If Ma's Machine was a singer, it was probably before they actually started putting numbers on him. It would be a Singer IF, Improved Family, which was a long shuttle. Was it a long shuttle? I don't actually. I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know if it was transverse or I'm going to look that one up. That's a machine that's a little bit earlier than I know anything about. Just a reminder to all you folks, I don't know much of anything except what I know, and it's certainly not everything. And I just hope to lead you to some sources to if you want to find out more about things, stuff and things. I'm just a presenter. I'm an entertainer. I'm here to tell you cool stories about sewing culture, sewing machines, sewing history. And for the longest time, I was like, I know there's a sewing machine in a Little House in the Prairie. I remember the picture. And sure enough, in the chapter where Ma gets her sewing machine is one of those wonderful charcoal drawings of a sewing machine. And we're going to use that one for our little picture for this episode.
Excellent. Excellent.
So let's just talk about dry goods stores now. Back to the whole dry goods concept. What happened to dry goods stores? When I was a little kid, I lived in a little town, Elmira, Oregon, about 600, 700 people. And we had two grocery stores and a couple of gas stations, post office, barbers, and we had a variety store. A variety store is dry goods kind of morphed into that. Okay, so dry goods was basically, it started with dry goods. What does that mean? Well, of course, things that are dry. They're not wet. It's not pickles. It's not meat. It's not dairy. Basically, all the things that you needed to make clothes, because before the Industrial Revolution, that was a big deal. You had to buy all the bits yourself and make it. So there was stores for that, dry goods stores. As time went on, ready-to-wear started to happen, and less people are sewing. Dry goods stores started to change. They started selling more things, maybe like papers and pens and more household things. They're still dry, right? We're not selling wet stuff here. Clear up until I was a little kid, these variety stores, as they were called, were like that. You couldn't even buy a can of pop in them. Now you can. There's a refrigerator at the front. But little stores like that, you'd go in and there'd be a office section and a household cleaners section and all those different things. And usually in the back, there was still a fabric section, clear up until the 80s.
Wow.
A whole section of fabric and notions and all the things that you would still need to make your own clothes. Well, those things are gone now. Somebody told me that some Walmarts still have a fabric section. I don't shop at Walmart. I don't know. And again, I'm talking strictly from the perspective of the United States here, because kids, I've never been off this here island. So things may be different where you are. In your country, what's the history of sewing where you're at? Oh my God. If I start getting started on what's the folk sewing culture of Bulgaria or something, it's going to be a huge rabbit hole.
We could go there, but it will take a while.
I'm going to stick to North American, United Statesian, estadounidense stuff, because that's what I know. And our frontier, quote, that friction line between the European settlers and the Native Americans, the frontier, as the white people moved west, the frontier moved west. Finally, it got to the West Coast, and we all piled up out here. All the people who couldn't stand living in cities, well, we finally made it to the edge. But sewing machines came right along. I got a new book, talks about sewing culture in communities of color here in the United States, and I cannot wait to get into that because sewing machines have made an impact on everybody. So today we talked about white people settlers in the Midwest and their experiences of dry goods stores and sewing machines through the lens of Little House on the Prairie, a beloved American children's book series that was made into a really heinous TV show. I watched that show when I was a kid. It has nothing to do with the books at all. It's basically a soap opera set in the 1880s.
Yeah.
I don't even think there were any sewing machines in there. Speaking of sewing machines in movies and TV, I'm on my second watch of Downton Abbey.
Oh, of course.
I'm counting
of
up
course.
and writing down the sewing machines and trying to figure out what models they are. Just one thing I want to mention, between the first and the sixth, the whole TV series, there's one character that shows up with a sewing machine. Can I please plug it in down here in the servants' quarters because I haven't got a socket in my room. Mm-hmm. And then later, a few years later, a few more series, she's still doing that, but it's a different machine, subtly different. I think she went from a 128 to a 99. As soon as I get to that episode again, I'm going to pause and take notes.
Nerd.
I'm such a nerd. Calico.
Calico.
What is calico? What do you think calico is, Red? What is calico?
Well, my association with calico is rooted in these books.
Okay.
Because, I'm a little kid reading these, and then there's also like pioneer kind of stuff happening in the fall, where I'm growing up because I live out here in Oregon. And so to me, calico is the fabric that you dress the girls in for those kinds of like diorama parade float setup things, right? And so it's always the same kind of patterns, and it's the dense little flowers. It's dense little flowers of varying shades. Sometimes they're really blue, sometimes they're really red. They're often dark, not always dark. Sometimes they can be quite light with a lot of whites and other stuff, and the flowers can be different colors or different sizes, but it's always this like dense stippling of flowers of some variety or other, and it's always in pioneer context. It's not allowed to exist outside of pioneer reenactments. That is my understanding of calico.
Oh my God. This episode might have to be divided into two pieces because calico it's like you said, it's like synonymous with the American West, but what is it really? You described one type of calico. Calico. Now this goes back to when we were talking about what kinds of fabric were available. You had your cotton-based fabrics and your wool-based fabrics. Along about in the 1700s in India, they started weaving calico cloth, but it was from Calcutta, the city in India.
Oh.
Calcutta. And they were weaving very dense, rough cotton fabrics printed with bright colors. This was new. This was not part of the American. Nobody had seen this kind of fabric before. Printed with all kinds of designs. It became a hit. It is in 1800s America. This was a cotton fabric that was not associated with convicts or enslaved people or sailors. It was a new kind of cotton. It was from India. It had pretty colored flowers and things on it. But it also came in, as we were in Mr. Clancy's store, a checked calico. So it came in all kinds of prints and patterns. Men often wore checked calico. Calico is the name of the actual fabric with the printing on it. Calicos were printed. They're not woven.
Right.
A tartan is woven with the colors, right? A calico is printed on one side. So it's a heavy cotton fabric that's printed on one side. Long wearing, and I mean, it was, so men's shirts and women's dresses that was the fabric. It's like that was the fabric. So what we think of as calicos today, a lot of people will go immediately to quilting.
Sure.
Well, quilting is an American art form that got started by people who didn't believe in throwing anything away. You know, they wear their clothes out or their scraps left over. They save every piece of fabric and they sew them together in new things, right? So then as quilting has become a hobby, sort of divorced from the necessity of reusing everything, now you can go buy bolts of calico and cut them up and sew them back together in little pieces. And that's people's experience of calico. Quilting has gone so far beyond that. There's, specific quilting cottons now, but they're all basically printed, heavyweight, nice cottons.
Okay, all right, makes sense.
Yeah. So the calico that Ma Ingalls was buying was probably a little heavier than what you can buy in today's stores. And it came in a lot of different patterns and colors, only some of which were flowers. In the movie Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner's character, again, it's a frontier cowboy and Indian kind of movie, he wears a beautiful dark burgundy calico shirt with tiny little golden and blue. They're so small you can't tell what they are. They're kind of read as dots. It might be tiny little flowers, but yeah, a fancy calico shirt. And not just, let me take you, let's spring back from 1880 to 1980. Gunny Sacks is a dress brand. Prairie dresses were a rage in the late 70s and early 80s. A company called Gunny Sacks really cashed in on them. And they're coming back. I've been seeing these things in my Facebook feed, Gunny Sacks prairie dresses. And it's basically complete mishmashes of calico and lace all slammed together with some sort of... Ma Ingalls would have not worn it.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there a thing where like sacks, like for flour, were like printed with prints,
Right.
so that way you could sew clothes out of flour sacks, and it was like a whole thing?
That was the original Gunny Sack, Gunny.
Okay.
Gunny Sack. But the dress brand is Gunnesax, Gunny Sack.
But, okay.
So it's like this...
Come on now. Oh,
Okay. Yeah. Now, here's my secret shame. I graduated high school in a Gunny Sack dress. It was white with little purple and green calico dealies and white ribbons and white lace, and oh my God. And of course, anybody who wants that traditional country look, like American frontier, because that's, like you said, we associate that fabric and that look. But prairie dresses are coming back. I don't know if it's part of the American trad wife thing or people are getting into Oregon Trail cosplays or whatever. But
¿Por qué no los dos?
Calico got started in India, but America... I wonder if other British colonies had experiences with calico, because, India was part of the British Empire, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no. So, was calico a thing in Australia, South Africa? Some of the other British, Canada, I'm sure, because Canada and the U.S., of course, they probably worked a little more with wools up there. Oh, fabric, sewing machines, so much. First time I ever heard a sewing machine, I thought it was pretty darn loud, too. So I'm with Laura Ingalls on that one.
You mentioned before we started recording that Dollar General was going to come into this story.
Oh my God, I forgot. So what happened to variety stores when they quit selling fabric and they quit selling a lot of traditional things and they started selling cheap plastic imported housewares from other places? And all of our variety and dollar stores, people of a certain age will remember names like Kresge, Newberry, Woolworths. These places you could buy everything and sit down and have lunch. What's left? We don't really have American variety stores anymore. We have big box stores like Target and Walmart, maybe, but they tend to sell things like furniture and bigger stuff too. The little variety stores didn't sell stuff like that. It was all little stuff. Dry goods, goldfish food, pens and pencils. Now what do we got? Family Dollar, Dollar General. What are the products? Imported junk. No fabric. I even went into one in an emergency looking for a spool of thread. No thread. No needles.
Damn.
Nobody fixes their clothes anymore. They just throw them away and buy new ones. from Dollar General.
Yeah, so you did. I'm assuming you did see clothing at Dollar General. Actually, I know that there's clothing at Dollar General because I know someone who says the best socks that they've bought in the last 10 years they got on a whim at Dollar General on a vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the really cheap imported junk clothes
Oh,
there.
man.
But I live in a very small town now, population 1,000. One of our hardware stores has a clothing section, but it's all like ranch workwear, good stuff. I bought a pair of gloves the other day. And they also sell cat food and pens and pencils. It's getting kind of back to the little country store thing, but there's no fabric. There's no notions. There's no thread. There's no sewing machine needles. Because people just don't sew much now. They get the clothes from factories. Be like Ma. Have a scrap bag full of good things that you can whip out when you need to sew something. And be like Laura. Have a thimble that fits. And don't be scared when the sewing machine starts up. There's one other fabric that's mentioned in the Little House in the Prairie series. It's mentioned in the very first book, Little House in the Big Woods. And when I read this, I had no idea what they were talking about. Ma's delaine dress. What is delaine? So the setting is they're going to go to a big gathering at Grandma and Grandpa's house because they're going to be making maple sugar. They're in the big woods of Wisconsin, and they're doing sugar snow.
Right, right.
So, and all the aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody's getting together at Grandma's house, and Pa even gets a new string for the fiddle because there'll be dancing. So it's going to be a big deal. This is a big deal back in the days of sleds and stuff. We're all going to get together at somebody's house and have a party, and everybody will sleep over. Ma decides to wear the delaine. Ma's delaine dress was beautiful. It was a dark green with a little pattern all over it that looked like ripe strawberries. A dressmaker had made it in the East, in the place where Ma came from when she married Pa and moved out west to the big woods of Wisconsin. Ma had been very fashionable before she married Pa, and a dressmaker had made her clothes.
Wow.
Ooh.
Forgot about that.
The delaine was kept wrapped in paper and laid away. Laura and Mary had never seen Ma wear it, but she had shown it to them once. She had let them touch the beautiful dark red buttons that buttoned up the front and had shown them how neatly the whale bones were put in the seams inside with hundreds of little crisscross stitches. Wow.
Damn.
What is delaine? For some reason, when I was a little kid, I thought it had something to do with ceramics. Her dress was shiny. I don't know. Delaine is a type of woolen fabric that was very popular in the 19th century, which comes specifically from the Delaine merino sheep. So it's actually, the fabric is named for the wool that it is.
Oh.
The fabric was either made entirely of Delaine merino or could be mixed fiber of Delaine and cotton. It was either dyed or printed. In the case of the Delaine in Little House in the Big Woods, it was printed with a pattern of tiny leaves that looked like strawberries. It was known for being lightweight and durable, making it a good choice for clothing worn by pioneers. The fabric was also relatively inexpensive and easy to produce, which made it accessible to many people. So what makes this dress so expensive then? If the fabric's, it's a common, lightweight, sturdy fabric. Okay, it's printed, it's beautiful. Why is this dress so expensive? Any guesses?
Hundreds of tiny crisscross stitches on the whalebone ribbing seems like an indicator that maybe
Yes.
the quality of all the little features and fittings and accoutrement would be making it very expensive.
The hundreds of tiny stitches on the whalebone stays. It was made by a dressmaker. Ma didn't make it herself. Now, not that Ma, remember, we find out later in the books, there's several hints. Ma really does not like sewing. It's not her thing. So having this beautiful dress made for her, remember, there's no patterns. Clothes are made to fit them. So she has this wonderful designer-made dress that she keeps folded in paper and tucked away. Remember, it's wool. Moths are a problem. So keeping such a thing, you got to take it out and shake it out once in a while. But delaine, finally, I am 63 years old and the mystery has been solved. What is delaine? As I was preparing for this episode. I was like, hey, what about that dress? And there's a picture of a reconstruction of what it may have looked like. And it really is beautiful. So we'll put that in this episode. I'd like to find some. I wonder if Delane is still made, or if it's under a different name, because fabric names change.
Yeah, what is the current state of the Delane continuum?
I would think it would be wool gabardine, but I think gabardine is a different type of weave too. So, any of you textile nerds out there who want to just tell us more about 1880s fabric and stuff, we were already past the Industrial Revolution, so this stuff's being cranked out. That'll be one of our next episodes, is the 4 machines that led to the necessity of the sewing machine, which also ties in with King Cotton. Join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. or whenever you feel like it for new episodes of Used to Sew, because there's so much topics on this. We'll never get through all of it. Stay threaded.
And there you have it, the second half of our rambling discussion about topics found in the Little House on the Prairie book series by Laura Ingalls Wilder and Rose Wilder Lane. We saw the sewing machine go from a frightening tool to a household appliance, tracked the last known rumor of where Ma's sewing machine ended up, talked about the different kinds of calico fabric available, and examined the progression of general stores to Dollar Generals over 100 years. I really liked all the fabric digressions in these 2 episodes. Blue jeans in the last episode, calico and gunny sacks and Delane in this episode. I find it all so interesting. Maybe it's because I exist in a world of synthetic blends where all natural fibers feel like a score, but I think textile history is not getting enough attention. Happily, it sounds like TR is going to satisfy my interest in this topic soon. You were also very patient with me through the opening spiel, where I took more time than usual to deep dive into some questions we had in the episode, mainly about how Laura's daughter Rose affected the slant of the books. I originally had said last week that she had, quote, very specific 1930s era attitudes about what American social and economic policies should be, and that she wrote many of the details to fit the narrative rather than what actually happened. As we now know from the research I put in since then, it might be more accurate to say that she shaped very specific 1930 era's attitudes about what American and social economic policies should be with many pieces of writing, including her contributions to the Little House books. She is one of the mothers of libertarianism, had a fascinating life as a journalist, held and espoused controversial opinions, wrote for a black newspaper, and was instrumental in bringing these historical fiction books into our collective experience for the last 90 years. I'm only scratching the surface of all that is here, and I'm very interested to learn more from these pioneer girl books that I didn't know existed until I did this research. But I think that's enough deep diving for one episode. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, and also with money, at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.